Who is the player in Poppy Playtime? In Chapter 1, we receive a letter stating that the staff of Playtime Co. are still within the confines of the factory. Without hesitation, we, the player, decide to go back and solve the mystery of what happened. There's a reason why this letter was sent to us in the first place, but figuring out said reason is a bit tricky. There are a lot of characters in Poppy Playtime with mysterious origins, but one that doesn't get talked about much is the player. We don't even know our name or what we look like, adding to the shrouded mystery of who the player is. In certain sections of the game, like the counselor's office, we can see a reflection when looking through certain glass doors, but all that's visible are two hands and a glowing white orb as our head. Much like Ollie, we're lacking in physical appearance. So what do we know about the player? Starting off with the obvious, we were an employee at Playtime Co. While our role at the factory is not confirmed, there are some clues that hint to which sector our character worked in. It's safe to say that the player knew about the experiments happening to the children at Playtime, therefore having some high-level clearance. In Home Sweet Home, our hallucination reveals a lot about our regrets. For example, we keep seeing these two phrases around the orphanage: happy and fun, why was it done? And guilt haunts you. Starting off with the first phrase, it could mean a few things. Firstly, this could be something that we kept asking ourselves or other employees at Playtime. The player could be trying to find a reason as to why all this torture and suffering occurred in the first place. It's almost like a plea: how could we do something so terrible in the name of happiness and childhood? The next thing this phrase could mean is that the player is imagining what the tortured souls would be asking us after being experimented on. It could represent the constant cries of children playing over and over again in our head. Similar to the radios in Home Sweet Home, it's like a never-ending record that remains imprinted in our mind, serving as a constant reminder and some form of punishment that we, as the player, will probably never forget or be forgiven for what we've done. The second phrase, guilt haunts you, is a bit more self-explanatory. Apparently, we did something so terrible that we couldn't live with ourselves for it. So returning back to the factory was a chance to redeem ourselves, making up for what we have done, and by doing some good in the process, something that could fix everything. But unfortunately, that's impossible. This phrase can also be seen through glass. At the end of one of the hallways, it's in a room that has a computer, and it's been theorized that this is our office that we used to work in. But notice how we can't go into the room. We can only observe it from afar. There are most likely really bad memories associated with that office, and it could symbolize that no matter what, we can't change what happened in our past. We can only look back and remain haunted by the terrible atrocities that occurred. And unfortunately, there's no peace for the player as we constantly keep seeing messages indicating that we are unwanted. For example, Dogday's cardboard cutout says that we can't be here and we can't stay.
Why are you just standing there? You can't be here. You can't stay.
So we definitely had a job that was closely linked to the experiment and suffering of the children. Another piece of evidence to back this up is after we get ambushed by catnap in the counselor's office. We then go through a hallucination in which we are seen among the children at Home Sweet Home, the school, the playhouse, and the counselor's office, so we can assume that we worked in close proximity with the orphans. With many theorizing that we are the head of production, seeing how we know so much about the toys, their weaknesses and faults, being able to kill Huggy, Mommy, and Catnap with ease. But in Chapter 2, we're able to see the higher-up tunnels, which were slides that had the names of important employees like Elliot Ludwig and Leith Pierre. However, the fifth slide has decaying letters that are hard to see, so it's speculated that this has our name on it since it's connected to the production room right above the tunnels. Usually, the head of production is someone who is in charge of controlling and planning all processes that have to do with manufacturing. So if we're the head of production, we could have been involved in the toy development process, and it wouldn't be a stretch to assume that this role overlapped with the Bigger Bodies initiative. Plus, we seem pretty handy with the grab pack, so it makes sense if we were in the production world, as we may have even been involved in establishing the product. The only thing that contradicts this theory is our alleged office in Chapter 3. If we're the head of production, then why would our office be in the orphanage? It's safe to assume that the head's office would be somewhere else on the main facility. If our office is in Home Sweet Home, then there are a few possible jobs that we could have. The one that stands out the most would be the researcher. Throughout the orphanage, we see observatory rooms with one-way glass windows looking into the rooms of the children. Perhaps we were gathering information on the orphans and their behaviors, but we still only have parts of the puzzle completed. Another theory suggests that the main character is actually Rich, an employee at Playtime who's known for having anger issues. Rich is somewhat a random character that doesn't seem to fit in the main storyline of Poppy Playtime. He's featured in every chapter, and in Chapter 3, he has the chance of getting promoted.
That doesn't sound like the Rich I know.
Well, trying to stop being so pissed off all the time. My wife says I'm a lovely man, but I gotta control my temper. So, I'm doing it for her.
You're just different, Rich. Honest to a fault. But I always liked that about you.
Yeah? Well, you're one of the few.
You know, Richie, with my retirement coming up, they've been pushing hard for me to choose my replacement. I'm thinking about giving the role to you.
Really?
Really? Nothing official yet. But I think there's a decent guy beneath all that graft.
Because of the fact that Rich was an employee who has constant cameos in the game, people have speculated that he is the player, but this wouldn't add up. While we don't know what Rich's actual role in the company was, we do know that he worked in shipping, as stated in Chapter 3. But Rich doesn't have much intel for being the main character. In that VHS tape, when speaking to his superior, he says this:
Don't you think these kids deserve some real sunlight instead of floodlights and painted skies? Hell, we're not even allowed to talk to these kids. Isn't that...
Rich doesn't know or understand why the orphans are so isolated from the rest of the world, so he probably doesn't know about the experimentation happening. There's no evidence to support that he worked with the children in any capacity, so where does this leave us? Let's draw our attention back to Home Sweet Home. In the hallucination, we come across a radio video that has backward speech but reverse. This is what it says.
Murder, you pillage and destroy. Your presence was demanded 10 years ago and you didn't show up. 8/8/1995. You were supposed to be here. Why weren't you here? You missed the event. You missed the meeting. You missed the party. You have no right to be here.
When hearing this for the first time, it sounds like the guilt of the player coming back to haunt us. We had missed the hour of joy, and all of our co-workers ended up dead. And to a large extent, this still checks out, but something about the dialogue is just off. So let's go ahead and go through this line by line. You come in here and you kill and murder. This could be used to describe the atrocities that we committed while working at Playtime, possibly giving the green light for experiments to proceed, or even participating in them ourselves, or even being the head of this and being the one who started it. But this sentence is in the present tense. It refers to us right now as we return to the factory. Kill and murder alludes to us defeating Huggy and Mommy in the previous chapters. Pillage and destroy refers to us tearing down Playtime Co. after we came back, i.e., crashing the train train at Playcare and causing a huge fire. But how do we know for sure that this first line is in the present tense? Well, because the second line uses the word demanded, which is in the past tense. In other words, the speaker is basically saying, "How dare you come back to Playtime Co. when you failed to arrive at a time when your presence was needed a decade ago?" Again, this refers to us being a major part of the Hour of Joy, and that we were quite literally a massive part of this whole event, and possibly the reason behind why everyone we used to know is now dead. But there is a major problem with this. At this point, the player isn't supposed to know that the Hour Joy even happened. But we know that throughout the chapters, Poppy does say things like, "You deserve to know the truth." And she then shows us the Hour of Joy VHS as a giant reveal, implying that we had no previous knowledge of the event. But we know the player did have knowledge of this. As stated before, the radio message is a clear sign that maybe, just maybe, we were the ones organizing it, helping the toys to be free, and this could explain why the prototype hasn't just killed us, as he wants to know why we didn't show up. But moving on to the next two lines. "You were supposed to be here. Why weren't you here?" Now this could once again just be the player's guilt talking. We were supposed to die on that day since we were an employee, and what makes us so special that we deserve to live and everyone else didn't? But this line could also mean something else when paired in conjunction with the next sentence.
Supposed to be here. Why weren't you here? You missed the event. You missed the meeting. You missed the party. You have no right to be here.
We can take a clear sign that these words event, meeting, and party have all got drastically different meanings. Sure, the word event could refer to the Hour of Joy, but a meeting? What meeting could we have possibly missed? This tells us that something was being planned and we were a part of it. On the same day as the Hour of Joy, the player and some other characters were going to do something. If this tape represents a Playtime co-worker speaking to us, then the meeting could refer to anything work-related. But what if it's referring to participating in the Hour of Joy? This theory already sounds pretty crazy, but consider this line, "You missed the party." This is very strange because why would the Hour of Joy be referred to as a party when it was in fact the very opposite? Now people have started to theorize on this, and one being that it could have been the player's birthday or even the day the Bigger Bodies initiative was first founded, and so that's the party to celebrate. But this is all theories and can be trusted as there is little evidence to back this. But we do know that the only characters that would refer to this massacre as a party are the toys who planned it all along. And if you think it's too crazy that employees actually sided with the prototype, then think again. Let's recall back to the restricted relocation VHS tape. Mob published this video on YouTube almost a year before Chapter 3 came out. This video took place on the same day as the Hour of Joy, and it was an instruction video on how to relocate a bigger body. Here, Kissy Missy is the prime subject being transported to a different part of the facility. The video is separated into multiple steps. Step 1, retrieve body. Step 2, safely secure giant. Step 3, load giant onto train. But then in Step 4 is where things get weird. The original instructions refer to the Bigger Bodies Handbook, but over those instructions, written in red ink, are the words, "Loosen the straps, binding the giant." Soon after, Step 6 and 7 say to release the straps. Now, VHS tapes are pretty ancient, and nobody really knows how they work anymore. But the important thing to know is videos on a tape can be overwritten with new images. Now, because this tape is classified only for high-clearance Playtime employees, then it definitely didn't fall into the wrong hands. Perhaps a Playtime co-employee did this on purpose, or even gave the exclusive tape to a toy so that it could be tampered with. But why would employees want to help the prototype? First, it's important to note the possibility that these employees weren't completely aware of the chaos that would ensue, as they could have been used as mere puppets to help jumpstart the Hour of Joy. Or perhaps they felt immense guilt about the work they were doing and thought they could redeem themselves by helping the toys. So could we have also fallen into this category? I believe not. I believe we did this out of revenge, and I think this VHS tape can prove my theory.
experiment number 1188. What's his real name again? Ah, okay. Hey, Theo. How you doing, bud? Normally I'd have Dr. Sawyer do this, but he's, out, let's say. So you got me until they find his replacement. First off, congrats. This is officially your 4th year in your new body, and you've made some real progress, pal. I was told that when you and the other smiling critters, dogday, picky piggy, yada yada yada, were added into play care, that you weren't really getting along too well with the kids like everybody else was. But look at you now. The kids love you, and that bred smoke. I mean, that's fantastic, isn't it? Is his, voice thingy still broken?
As seen in this VHS tape, they talk about this character, the Doctor, who magically out of nowhere was either sacked or turned himself into a bigger body. With this being one of the few VHS tapes where we hear of this character, it's hard to assume what happened. But with the evidence we have, we can only assume he was let go of Playtime Co. and demoted. And this brings me to Miss Delight. During our encounter with Miss Delight, she mentions that we shouldn't be alive and that she recognizes us.
I recognize you. Yes, I remember. You used to work here. How are you? Alive. Barb? Oh. Barb says you're looking for your co-workers. Catnap wouldn't like that you're here. You should leave. For your own safety.
With Miss Delight recognizing us, almost a decade after the Hour of Joy, must mean we played a massive part in the organization. And it isn't just Miss Delight who recognizes us. Bubba mentions recognizing us. The fact that so many characters can remember us a decade later means we were a massive part of the bigger bodies. And so this leads me down to the question, who could the player be? And I would like to say there are a few characters, with the Doctor being the most obvious. As mentioned during a lot of his dialogue, he spent years working on this, but after everything he has seen and discovered from this, he realized his own creation had turned him into the person he didn't want to be. And so he started working with the other toys and the prototype to set them free. But come the day, he didn't show up for some reason, and a decade later decided to investigate what really happened and if the toys are still alive, waiting for him. And this would explain how we, the player, were so easily able to kill Huggy, Mommy, and Catnap. Alongside all the other little bosses we killed along the way, we knew their weaknesses. We knew this because we created them. We made them who they are. But looking at Kissy, this would explain why she attacks us right away after exiting. But Poppy intervened, saying that we are on their side now.
I didn't do anything wrong. You're actually here to help. This place makes her tense. I'm glad that Ollie could help you get this far.
Now, the fact that Kissy was ready to attack us makes us believe she has something against us, something sinister. But this could explain why the prototype wants to see us and why he didn't just kill us from the start. To better understand why we didn't show up, now I would like to give Rich a mention. But it's just highly unlikely he would be the main character, as he's never spoken to or saw the bigger body initiative at all, from what we can see, and so wouldn't understand the weakness of all the characters we have fought. Another character people believe the player to be is a caretaker from the orphanage, and this relates to the banter between us, Poppy, and Ollie. And again, this could be a solid theory if looked into, right? But with all the other angles I have, I don't believe this to be true. I don't believe that it could be one of the caretakers, as they wouldn't know enough about the facility. But that's all for today. Now make sure to comment your theories and click on this video. And remember to stay curious.